The creative juices are flowing at LHWH. We're here to talk about the Silver Reed Gallery, coming up next on Carolina People. Good morning. Welcome to Carolina People. This morning we're at LHWH, Advertising and PR in Myrtle Beach. We're focused on the Silver Reed Art Gallery, which launched here at the agency last April. And we're visiting with the gallery's coordinator, Paulette Best, who also serves as the traffic manager and a graphic artist here at LHWH. Good morning, Paulette.
Good morning, Greg. How are you?
Thanks so much for being with us this morning.
Problem.
And thanks for hosting us all week and coming up with the idea for Carolina People to focus on the Silver Reed Art Gallery. Really creative concept and one that I think viewers will find a lot of favor in.
Yeah, it's been fun, actually. It's been real fun doing the Silver Reed Gallery.
Yes, we're dying all week to hear all about it.
Where are you going to?
This should be great. Paula, can we talk real quick about yourself? Were you originally from the area?
Yes, I was actually born in Charlotte, North Carolina. And on my one-year birthday, my family moved back here because my father is from here. He grew up in Aner. And we moved to Aner. I lived there, went through high school and all that, and decided to go to Winthrop. So I've been in South Carolina like my whole life, and I came back down here.
You still have family in Aner and Horry County?
Everybody in my family lives here. Even my mother's mother moved here, and she lives out in Gallivan's Ferry, so pretty much everybody in my family lives down here. My one road is my uncles and my aunts and cousins and everybody on one road called True Lake Johnson Road, which was named after my grandfather.
True Lake Johnson.
True Lake Johnson. He's a true luck man. Lots of luck.
What's that like growing up on one road with all family?
It's awesome because all my cousins, we always played together. My favorite memories are like playing in ditches. I mean, I was like, it was nothing but boys in my family. I had one cousin that was a girl, and she actually lived in the city limits of Aner, but they'd always come back, so it would be pretty much me and her and a whole bunch of boys, because my grandmother had seven daughters and,
Right.
7 people in her family.
Right.
And they all lived there, and they all had boys, so it was all nothing but boys. We'd play with them and get in ditches and leeches on our bodies. It was just crazy, climbing trees and being out in the field. So it was real fun being out in the country, to be a child.
Did you ever think, Paulette, growing up there, that you would be in a position sitting here today as the traffic manager at a major ad agency?
I always knew I was going to be something great.
Yes, absolutely.
Actually, I was an artist at a really young age. My grandmother, my mother's mother, was a really good artist. She focused on watercolor. So when I was little, I used to always watch her. And actually, I have some on old paper, me trying to simulate her water paintings when I was like 6 or 7. So I've always kind of, my parents were always like, whatever you want to do. And when I actually got older, and my dad was like, you can't be a starving artist, where are you going to be? And then that's when I decided to go into the graphic design part of it, because I could still be an artist, but I could still make some money.
Right.
So, I wanted to be, make sure, like in 20 years from now, I wouldn't be like on the street trying to sell velvet paintings or something like that. So.
What about when you went off to Winthrop, Paulette? Did you study graphic design or art? Or?
Yes, I actually got a bachelor's degree in graphic design. I think I graduated at I don't even remember. A long time ago.
A while back.
A while back, yeah. I was on the 6-year plan because the first 3 years that I went there, I went full-time, and then I knocked down to part-time because I got a job working for a place called Universal Components, and they sold pneumatic and hydraulic parts. Do you want to know anything about a ball valve? I can tell you.
That's the one to call. Wow.
Because actually one of my friends worked there as the accounts payable person, and he was looking for people to put glycerin in gauges. And I was like, well, hey, I was just like working in a pizza joint, going to school full time. And he's like, well, I'll pay you like $10 an hour if you come down here and put glycerin in these gauges. And I was like, I'm making like nothing delivering pizzas. I'm going over there.
Right.
So I went there and did that part time, and then I did the delivering pizzas part time. And finally I was like, I'm going to do this gauge stuff because I was still going to school. And then one day, my boss, Sean Keel, was telling me that he's been trying to put together a catalog at Universal Components and been trying to do it, but he's fired a bunch of people because they're long distance and the communication was bad. And I was like, well, Sean, I was like, that's what I go to school for, is graphic design. And he loves to tell this story because we're still really good friends. I talk to him when we go out and see people. He always tells this story. He's like, if Paulette came up to me and she said, well, you know, Sean, that's what I go to school for. And he said, well, Paulette, you know, I like you a whole lot, and I don't want to have to fire you, too. I was like, Sean will be the last person you ever hire. And from then on, we and him worked together and did the first catalog for Universal Components. It took us about 8 months. I would go to school in the morning, get there about 5 o'clock, and me and him would work till about 1 o'clock in the morning, working and putting the catalog. 'Cause I had to learn all the products I had to go through. Because he's kind of a distributor, so I would have to learn all the products and figure out what it was and then figure out how to put it into a catalog. So I've learned a lot of stuff about pneumatics and hydraulics.
Absolutely. Paulette, well, why would you have left the Winthrop area to come back to Horry County?
Well, it's an interesting story because basically I was there for about 8 years, and I would only come home for the holidays or whatever it was, and I started like getting, started missing my family because a lot of people started getting married and having children, and everybody was growing up.
Right.
I was like, I'm so far out here, and I had friends there, but families, you know, it's different. So I called my mom up one day. I said, no, I'm sorry. I emailed her at work, and I said, Mom, I was like, I've been sort of thinking about coming home. And that was like at 2 o'clock. When I got home that night, there was an answer on my answer machine. My mom said, I found you a job, and there's a place for rent in Aner. Come on down. And I was like, what? So I get on the phone, I called her, and she actually had found a job, and it was actually for LHWH.
Wow.
Actually, it was for Sherry Press, was what it was originally for. They were looking for production artists. And I was like, well, okay. And then she found me a little house, and she went to there, took digital pictures of the house and sent it to me just so that I could see it.
Sounds like a progressive family.
Oh, yeah, she was like, she so wanted me to come back because I'd been gone for so long, you know. And so I was like, okay. And like within a month, I was packed up and back here. And I actually moved here the week that Hurricane Floyd hit, which was '98, the last week of September.
Right. What about moving from Sherry R into LHWH to becoming the traffic manager?
Right. Actually, what happened when I came in for the interview, actually the person that called me was Dick Gibson. He said he actually worked for LHWH, and that the job had already been filled for Sherry R, but he had an opening at LHWH and wanted to know if I was interested in it. And I was like, sure, yeah. So I came in, and it was originally for a production artist. But when I came down for the interview, the traffic manager position opened up, and they gave me a choice. And when I was actually talking to Steve Wilson, which is one of the partners here, he said, well, if you do traffic, you know, after you get used to that, if you want to get into the production part of it, you know, down the line, you get things together, you can. So that I had decided to do the traffic manager because I could learn about the agency, because I've learned so much from being here about printing and just, I mean, so much. I thought I knew a lot, but I knew nothing. And so when I got in traffic, I learned lots about advertising. And then when I got a handle on that, I started filtering in production jobs. And the art director stuff are great here because they'll let you put in your own flair. They give you a basis, and then you can go with it from there. So it was awesome.
I bet it was.
Yeah.
I was trying to think real quick if you could give the viewers a sense of exactly what a traffic manager does. I think when most folks hear traffic manager, obviously they're thinking about stoplights and
well,
being on the road.
We refer to it as a bus. So
right.
Whenever Dick's gone, it's like Paulette's driving the bus this week while I'm on vacation. Yeah. But what I initially came in for was I open all the jobs. So any job that is actually generated, LHWH, I open the job in our programs. I assign deadlines to them, kind of try to keep them organized. And when those jobs are done, I get them processed and ready, and I give them to the accounts payable person for billing. I also give the jobs to the production artists. We have actually a production team that's made of 2 people, Al, which will be speaking today, and Terry Johnson. And they do the production part, which means the artist give them the stuff, and they get it ready for output. So I usually kind of do most of my stuff with them. You know, basic resize. You know, the creative's already made, we resize it. And then I started I took it to another level. I started coordinating a bunch of other stuff. Like we have art luncheons for the art guys back there, and I kind of coordinate those and pick places, and you know. And then Silver Reed came along. I do a whole bunch of, you know, everything.
Right.
You know, if anybody needs anything, most people come to me to ask questions.
Yes.
You know, what was cool about me having I had that graphic design background, and when I'm in traffic, it worked out well because I knew a lot about the computers and a lot about graphic design. So when the AEs and stuff came to me, I could answer questions with knowledge. And when I talked to publications, I could actually talk to their production people and be able to communicate without having to go through a third person.
Right.
So I nipped a lot of time in the bud right at the get-go because I had that knowledge. So.
And I'm glad you mentioned Silver Reed Art Gallery, and obviously that's why we're here this week. And you won't believe 10+ minutes have flown by, and if we didn't have Vern Hearl coming in this morning, then we've got to talk about the art gallery because you're kicking off the week. Tell the viewers real quick, if you can summarize exactly what the Silver Reed Art Gallery is, which launched last April.
Well, the Silver Reed Gallery is just an internal art gallery that I want to say that it was a collaborative because I don't want to take full credit because a lot of the guys are artists, and we always talk about art. But how it kind of started was I wanted to do a collaborative piece. I wanted the guys to feel creative, and so I'm always thinking about how to make those guys, if they feel good and they're happy and they feel good about themselves, then it's obviously going to reflect on their work, and LHWH will be a better workplace, or we'll have better stuff for our people. So I kind of came up with the idea that I know that all of them are artists, why don't we just kick it up a notch and let's put their art up on the walls? And it'll make them feel good. Then everybody in the agency will know, too, that they are natural artists. And they're not computer geeks, and it's not just happening on the computer, that they're artists, and they have their own things. And I went around talking about it. Everybody got very excited about it, so we just launched it. It took a while. It took about 8 months to kind of get it together, because we actually had to transform our art department to where it would accommodate the art. We hung up the molding at the top, got the hooks and the wire and all that stuff, and we actually went out with Terry first, and I did the whole 9 yards. We would do an official gallery open. I brought in food. We had cheese and crackers and wine and all that stuff. I had little sign-in books. I actually started doing newsletters where each newsletter would focus on a particular artist, and it would be a little bit of background. We'd always twist it up and make it funny because we didn't want it to be serious. We wanted it to be something fun. So each one of the newsletters would be something silly or whatever. We take a piece of their life and twist it and say that was what inspired them to be an artist. And then it got bigger. As I went, it got bigger and bigger. The newsletters got longer. People started getting more involved. Even some of the artists actually wrote their own copy, because originally I was writing all the copy for the newsletter. So like Tim Perry, he wrote a ballad about his life and how he became an artist, and you sing it in the tone of David Crockett. So we just did some really funny stuff. Al, which you'll see that he wrote all of his copy. And people just started getting really involved. People were coming back there. It would be from 3 to 5 on a Friday, probably about a week or two after the first person went up. So every month we did a different person. Now, it wasn't exactly a month. Some people still had to frame their stuff and do things. So we would always push it back depending on who needed the time. But it was always interesting, because what I thought was so cool about it is that you deal with these people and you see their art that they output on the computer, but to see their art that they did at home, it was like looking deeper for me. Because some people, I would look at their stuff and I was like, that just it amazed me to see something else about that person, because some people are reserved and quiet. But then when you look at their artwork, you see something totally different. And you're like, whoa, that's another part of their personality. So it was always really interesting. And we'd always, of course, when it'd go up, everybody would talk about it, and we'd stand around, and it generated a whole bunch of other things. Everybody started getting more involved in the arts. So it was like other people were, going to we went to galleries. Some of the art luncheons, we did it, Gallery on 8. And we did one of those little conference rooms, and we walked around, looked at the art, So it started just becoming more art felt.
Right.
And I think people started feeling really good about it, and started actually doing some of their art again. For me, I did, because I started doing art again. That's kind of part of the reason I got inspired to do silver, because I was doing a lot of my own art. And then I was like, this feels so good to do it again, because it had been years. Because I was in pneumatics and hydraulics for 4 years. And I was like, this feels so good to do my own art. So then I started bringing in my stuff. And then Terry started doing his stuff. And then we started bringing in stuff. And then Al started doing stuff. The next thing I know, all these people are bringing in their stuff and finding out that, Tim does video, Marty's been doing stuff, and he donates his pieces. I'm going, this is so cool that all these people do all this stuff, and then they're bringing it in, and I think the creative juices and everybody was just, it was just awesome when it was like at the height. Right now we're on the low end of the gallery, because we're getting to the last people, and we've got to figure out where we're going to go from there. But at one point it was just like buzz, and it was just awesome. We even had a video a guy brought in a video, Tracy Floor from Sheridan. We let him come over, and he did an Easter bunny thing with his niece, and everybody from LHWH and Sherry was back there in the art department on this little 13-inch TV watching his show and laughing, and it's just been, I mean, it's been awesome doing everything, you know. So, and it encourages me to keep going with it.
Yes,
yeah,
Paulette. I hope you guys have heard this. Some of those adjectives. This is so cool, awesome, the buzz, and it truly is. The Silver Reed Gallery launched last April here at the agency. Even folks from Sherry have come over and been highlighted throughout the agency. And we thank Paulette so much this week for giving us the opportunity to highlight the gallery.
No problem.
Thank you for being with us this morning.
Uh-huh.
Stay tuned to more Carolina People coming up next. Good morning. Welcome back to Carolina People. This morning we're at LHWH Advertising and PR in Myrtle Beach. We're focused on the Silver Reed Art Gallery, which successfully launched here last April. And we're visiting with the last H of LHWH, Vern Hearl. Good morning, Vern.
Morning, Greg.
Thanks so much for being with us this morning.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Incredible opportunity this week to highlight the art gallery, to highlight the agency, to get partners like yourself in, creative folks. Later in the week, I think Lee Gaynor's coming in from the public relations side.
Mm-hmm.
Great treat for us to get in, but really to focus on the Silver Reed Art Gallery. But yourself, real quick, Vern, you originally from the area?
I'm a native of Myrtle Beach, yes. In fact, my brothers and sisters and I are 8th generation Horry County.
Eighth generation?
8th generation.
Golly, I don't think we had Alan Clemens in back in September and I think in November who said he was 8th generation. I didn't believe him, but now you're backing up his story.
Yeah. Family's been here quite a while, several years before the Revolution, so, we're not exactly sure of the exact date, but at least 8th generation.
Am I correct that there's a local landmark that bears your family's name, or at least phonetically?
Yes, Hearl Rock Park down around 20th Avenue South
Right.
was named after our family. The spelling of the name was changed back in the 1920s by a lady that bought some property near there, and she had no idea how it got its name and thought that it must have been misspelled, so she changed it to H-U-R-L. And it sort of, stuck and has been, known as that ever since. But yes, it was named after our family.
That's great. That's great. Where did you attend school, Vern, and did you study? What did you study?
I attended Virginia Commonwealth University in Richmond and studied advertising, majored in advertising.
Did you know when you went off to school that you were going to get into advertising, or did you figure that out while you were at VCU?
I had a really wonderful guidance counselor here at Myrtle Beach High School by the name of Reggie Guerin. Reggie was a super guidance counselor, and I've always been really interested in design and art of some form or function, and sitting and talking with him, he just sort of steered me in that direction and said, maybe this is something you want to look at. And as I got to know more about the program at VCU, I decided, that's exactly what I wanted to do. And so they had a great program there, and I went off and ended up staying in Richmond about 10 years. Worked for an agency after I got out, and it was a lot of fun.
Your first position out of college was working for an agency there in Richmond?
Yes, I went to work for an agency there, Clinton E. Frank, which was a fairly large agency out of Chicago, and they had a branch office in Richmond that handled the Reynolds aluminum account and Toyota Southeast and a lot of other really big accounts. And it was, for a young kid right out of school, it was just a dream job. I had done some intern work there, and that's sort of how I got my foot in the door, and then when I graduated, they offered me a job.
Vern, what do you think prompted your return to Myrtle Beach, back home?
I guess family roots and just, love of the area. Like I said, I'd lived in Richmond for about 10 years, and I liked Richmond a lot, but I always had this real yearning to get back home and to a place that I could really settle down. And we have a fairly large family, and I really miss them. So the late 70s, I decided, that now is probably a good time to move. And so I made the jump.
Can you give the viewers a sense of how LHWH was founded? I believe it's the merger of two groups. There was an agency that you had been involved in prior to merging with Andy.
Right. Steve Wilson, Paul Himmelsbach, and I formed Himmelsbach, Wilson, and Hearl in 1983. And then in 1987, we merged with Andy Lesnick and Sherryar Advertising, and formed Lesnick, Himmelsbach, Wilson, and Hearl.
Do you remember who your first clients were back, even prior to merging with Andy? Can you think back 20 years about some of your early clients?
Yeah. One of our first clients was the Caravel Resort up on North Ocean Boulevard. We also had Lightus Real Estate, which was a very up-and-coming real estate firm at that time, had a lot of projects around the beach. And then developers, as a lot of people probably remember back in the 80s, developments were going up everywhere, condominium projects, real estate communities, and a lot of people that we were dealing with at the time, our clients were into these big projects, and so we hit the ground running, and just had a lot of fun doing it.
Vern, I'm sure. Can you give the viewers a sense of how your services have changed since you first launched the earlier agency back in '83 with technological changes and otherwise? How has the business changed over the last 20 years?
Oh man, I mean it's like night and day when you look back on really how we did things. I can remember, Steve has always sort of headed up our creative team, and watching all those guys, sitting at drafting tables all day, and it was sort of cut and paste, and waxers, and having typeset, and those things are just so foreign to us today. And everything is, with the introduction of computers a few years back, it just completely revolutionized the business. And it has done it in so many ways, not only just the way we approach production and the creative process, but just our communication and interaction with clients. I mean, today it's nothing to, have a client that's several hundred miles away, because you can communicate with them instantly by, computer. It's just so easy to do it today.
Yeah.
Even, I remember when we first got into business, Greg, even fax machines were fairly,
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they were just coming into being. They weren't so common yet. And it used to be a real chore. You had runners that literally came around, picked up whatever you needed to send to somebody in town, and they delivered it, and you waited to, get a reaction to whatever you sent out, and then they'd call you back and, yay, nay, or whatever the project was. It's really changed, and I've got to say for the better. It's a lot more fun than it used to be.
Yeah, Vern, I was about to say, did that cause clients to be less interested in making changes, or did it force you to be more perfected? It probably didn't do that, but did it cause clients to say, my God, this could go on forever? Should we just go in and approve it and let them get at it, or did they? Were you just sending these runners back and forth constantly? No,
I don't think it really inhibited, clients from making whatever changes they wanted to. No, the client, it just really, it slowed up the process. Things took much longer.
Right.
I can work with a client today, develop an ad, for example, an artist or creative director put together whatever we're going to try to, show to the client, put it on the computer, just send them an image. They open up their computer file. Yes, I like that. That's great. Can we move that photo? Whatever. And in a matter of, a couple of hours, you can be through the process, and that could take considerably longer than that before. You know, people going in and out of dark rooms, shooting film, all those things are, you know, behind us, thank God.
Vern, obviously, this week we're focused on the Silver Reed Art Gallery. Paulette talked for a good 15 minutes earlier about a number of things, but was able to highlight a lot about the gallery. Can you talk real quick about, we've got about a minute, about how the agency has benefited from having the gallery?
Well, you know, the agency is really a small family. It's a group of people that come together and spend so many hours a week and month together. And I think it sort of helps all of us get to know one another better, because some of the things that I've seen go up in the gallery, I mean, you just never imagine, knowing somebody day to day, that they have that kind of talent. I mean, you see some of the things that the guys bring in and are exhibited back there. It's like, man, you know, it's just it really just shows you a totally different side of somebody than the normal everyday things that we do. And, you know, I guess I appreciate it most for that reason.
That's wonderful. We often hear a person claim to be a local after having been here 20 years. This is an 8th generation local. Vern Hearl, the last H in LHWH, recognizes the importance of the Silver Reed Art Gallery here at the agency. Thanks so much for being with us this morning, Vern.
Nice having you in.
Absolutely. Stay tuned to more Carolina People coming up next. We want to thank LHWH Advertising and PR for helping make the Silver Reed Gallery and today's Carolina People such a great success.